IRC Media brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Board Report. I'm Joanne Binford, and today joining me is John Caroll. He's a friend of mine, but also he is the Hernando County Housing Commissioner. Now, he's been doing that for a little over 3 years, and we're going to get to talk with him a little bit about what he does. But I'm also going to want to touch on some politics today and what's going on around the nation, because, all of this, it really does affect us here in our counties, in our neighborhoods, economics, all of that stuff. So we're going to cover a few things. I love talking about these topics with John. He's very good and well versed in them, and he will enlighten our evening tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, a small commercial, and we'll come back with John Caroll.
There's a kind of strength you can't buy or borrow. It's born in the fire, tempered by sacrifice, and carried by those who never stopped serving. Some heroes wear uniforms. Others wear scars. They're veterans, first responders, and Gold Star families. Men and women who gave everything and still keep giving. At the Warrior Shield Foundation, we stand beside them, shoulder to shoulder, providing the support, the care, and the community they deserve. We're a proud non-profit, a 501c3, built to protect those who protect us. We don't just serve our own. We help other non-profits reach their missions too, because together, we make the Shield stronger. Donate and help our cause, help their cause, because every act of kindness builds hope where the battle still rages inside. Join the mission. Donate today. Visit warriorshield.org, because heroes deserve a foundation as strong as their sacrifice.
Welcome back to the Board Report. Let's bring on John Caroll.
Good to be on here. Thank you, Joanne, for bringing me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us here at the Board Report, John. I love having these conversations with you. But before we get started, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now.
So, as you said in the intro, I'm very fortunate to be able to serve as housing commissioner for here in Hernando County. So, many parts of Florida, not every single part, has what's called their housing authority. So you'll have the Pasco County, Hernando County. Some of them will be like regional for like the small rural counties, like I think it's called North Central Florida. And these are the county versions of HUD is what they are, the Department of Housing and Urban Development at the federal level. So these were started right after HUD was created at the federal level when I believe it was Jimmy Carter created it. And here in Florida, it's unique because there is no state housing department. I think there's a small housing division within the Florida Department of Commerce, but that's it. And even as such, 95% of the funding for Hernando County's housing, the Housing Authority, comes from HUD. And the other like 5%-ish comes from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, which is a government-ran corporation. And so our job is to help oversee all the different HUD programs, NSP, SHIP, Section 8, in Florida's case, TBRA, stuff like that. So if you've ever heard about Section 8 housing, well, that's the kind of stuff. Now, every place is different. You have some places like Hillsborough County, which is very big, and they'll have like actual projects and stuff like that. In Hernando, we currently don't have a project. The Brooksville Housing Authority has one being made, and we're going to be small involved in it as well. But for our case, it's basically vouchers. So people go out and they try to get approved from a voucher because they're low income for whatever reasons, maybe disability, destitute, stuff like that. They get approved, they apply and try to get approved for a voucher. And if approved, they can go out into the market and find a house within the standards that HUD says they can for the size of their family. And then they can be provided a voucher to help cover a good amount of their rent and so on. And so that's the kind of programs we do. Now, the housing authority is unique in that you've heard about places like rent boards over in California. Those are elected. Different case. Those are for actually like publicly normal rent control places. In Florida, like I said, we are just covering these programs only. But these
Mhm.
housing authorities are not elected. They're strictly appointed, and they're only appointed by one person, and that's the governor. So I was very lucky that it was October of 2022. I was appointed to finish a term. The terms go for 4 years. They're just like elected seats. They're 4-year terms. If you go past the expiration date, you continue serving until the governor appoints somebody else or they reappoint you. And that's what happened to me in 2025. I was reappointed to my seat, which goes until 2028 or until if I resign, God forbid something else happens, or if I get appointed to something else and then therefore I have to resign and then someone else can take the seat.
So, John, out of the three programs, you said HUD, SHIP, and NSP, right?
Yes.
Which ones are more frequently used?
So you probably have to go with similar stuff like Section 8 or the NSP, which is the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. Emergency, those stuff is like, it's emergency funding for, state and local governments acquire, rehabilitate, dealing with foreclosed properties or abandoned homes, stuff like that is one thing, which we only have so much of that. In Hernando, not really much. Other counties, they definitely could. I don't know what the layout is like in Indian River County, growing area, Broward County, definitely a growing area. So in our case, it's mostly the vouchers. That's what we cover, and including HUD VASH. That's a big one for us. HUD VASH is the one for veterans itself.
Mm.
What HUD VASH stands for: HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and then Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing. It's a program overseen by HUD with assistance from the Department of Veterans Affairs, and so that's for veterans in that case. And we have a big amount of veterans that go through that program. We've got, I don't know, almost 200, I'd say, in Hernando County alone, which is actually quite a good amount.
Do you guys have a lot of people signing up for the SHIP program?
Uh, yeah, we have a good amount. We actually, so the funny thing we have in Hernando is what we've seen the last couple of years is that we have been exceeding or near hitting the limit on the amount of money we can have, but never using the max amount of vouchers that HUD says we're supposed to be using. Now, someone says, well, wait a minute, that sounds like maybe there's some kind of abuse or whatever. How is it that only so many is going out? Which we're doing a good amount. We're doing like more than 85 to 90% of the vouchers we do. The problem was, and we're still feeling the effects, Biden inflation, because they say, here's how many vouchers you can have, and here's how much dollars that can be used. And the problem was during the inflation time with Biden and everything, the rent went up. So it was offsetting because the rent went so high, and they didn't add how much more we can have that kept up with the inflation while equaling the amount for the vouchers. So we do have a list of people that apply, whether it's for the SHIP or the, non-subsidized housing, Section 8, like the vouchers or
Mm.
the HUD VASH programs. We've got a great amount going, and we actually just got a perfect score when we had our HUD review.
Hmm.
There was like the one little thing that we had a little knock on, which was way better than everybody else. And then I was like, wait a minute, you should have been fixed for that. And they're like, yeah, you're right. And we got a perfect score in the end. So we actually do very great because of all that.
So, what's the difference between SHIP, NSP, and Section 8?
It all has to go with the program. So SHIP, for example, is the State Housing Initiatives Program. So now that goes by to that's the Florida version of it. So Florida has what we have is the SHIP, and that's providing the funds from the state and everything to create and preserving affordable housing, for low to very low people, affordable. Um, but again, we only deal with so much here. Like in Hernando County's case, we only get, and it's like a rough estimate, only about 5% of our budget comes from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. And that's not knocking the state or anything. We are supposed to be predominantly a HUD funded agency. But the program itself, Florida only gets so involved. Now, you'll have some counties that will be different. I can tell you in Pinellas County, they have two housing authorities in some ways. They have the Pinellas County Housing Authority, which the governor appoints the commissioners to, and then you have the Pinellas County Housing Finance Authority, and that's a separate one ran strictly by the county of Pinellas, and so they'll have their programs in that case. So in that area, Pinellas County is providing a lot more funding for their local level what they do, and they'll be getting some stuff from the state as well, but they're heavily more involved. Now, to be fair, Pinellas County is a county with almost a population of 1 million people. They're just shy. They've got a population bigger than 5 states. So it's
Mm.
actually not a surprise they'll do that. Florida at the state level doesn't get too much involved in that case.
So the Section 8 and the NSP and the HUD VASH, are those all for home ownership or just rental?
No, rental. So that's where like TBRA comes into play, tenant-based rental assistance. So that's the key thing that we got, like with the vouchers and everything that we have. So let's say you have a family that HUD says, okay, you should be having a house, 2 bedrooms or something. The married couple and then 2 younger kids, they can have a joint room. So now you apply because you're low income, and you're
Mm.
going to try to put in and get approved for a voucher. So you get approved and it's like, okay, you can now look for this type of house. It's got to meet these standards. You can't go grandiose. You can't go to some private community and try to get approved for the place. And like, oh, the rent is 3,500, and we provide you say 1,500. Now you're covering the other 2,000. That's not the case. You have to find a proper kind of housing, whatever fits the space parameters, square footage, and the number of rooms and all that. It's going to meet the standards. So you're going to go find a place, come back to the housing authority, to my staff, and they're going to review it and say, yeah, this meets HUD standards. Like, keep in mind, the housing authorities, they don't make their own standards. This is what HUD says. So they're
Mhm.
answering to DC or their regional office, which was Jacksonville. I know they're going through some reorganization right now because they're cutting the HUD budget, but that's what they would do. And so they would hit those standards. So now let's say you have a place that gets approved and the rent is 2,000 a month, and your voucher could be say 1,500 a month. Well, now you're gonna have to come up with the other 500 difference or something like that. That's how that goes, and that's the biggest portion for us is the rental assistance in our case.
So with that kind of program, do landlords have to be part of the program, or can they say, I don't want to be part of the program?
So you do have programs, communities that will do their own thing. There's a couple of communities I know that they'll do these their own separate like HUD rooms. They'll block off like X amount of apartments that will be strictly this kind of HUD program, and which gets them open to funding, gets them open to possibly a tax write off and all that. But they do that separately on their own. That's something that they organize. They'll probably coordinate with us a little bit to let us know what's going on, but they do that on
Mhm.
their own independently. In our case, those that apply for the vouchers, if get approved, the landlords know that they're through HUD, that they're getting a voucher through the housing authority via from HUD via the housing authority, apologies, and go from there. And so they'll be kept up to date to knowing like, okay, there's certain rules and things they got to follow, which is not too hard. It's mostly stuff that the tenants have to keep up to date with us. Do they get a new job? Did their income go up? All these kind of things, and they have to be approved for. There's only a couple things that really the landlords have to worry about with us in those cases. So it's actually very simple for the landlords to do that. It is a little extra red tape that they know they need to worry about. It's not the hardest thing in the world. It's mostly paperwork, if that makes sense. But the
Yeah,
biggest
yeah.
thing is if they violate their rules.
So I want to go back to SHIP because I think you said homeowner initiative.
Uh, no. So as I bring back, so SHIP is a Florida one, State Housing Initiatives Partnership. Yeah, so providing funds to local governments. So that's where the state provides and gives down to, say, maybe the Pinellas Housing Finance Authority separately if they get approved. That's mostly going to be the county if we get from FHFC and all that. And the deal is, you know, covering affordable housing to the very low to low and moderate income families. So it's very similar, but it's the state ran. The other stuff I was mentioning is HUD ran. And so the state, if they have a housing department, they're going to be involved. Like I
Hmm.
know I used to live in Alaska for a couple of years, so they have a department of housing. I forgot the full name of it, so they'll be involved in that. I think it's housing and workforce development or something like that. And so they'll be intertwined between. But if they have separate programs, then there you go. And that's what SHIP is for the case of Florida, is that it is their own state program.
And
And
does
again,
it
it's only so much in our
okay.
case.
Because like the ship we have a ship program here,
Yeah.
and our ship program, it helps you buy a house pretty much. It helps you with the initiative of getting into your own house.
So I can't say not once have I heard about any case for us here in Hernando where somebody's been using any approved funds to buy a house. You always hear about rentals. That's
Well,
the
you don't buy it doesn't pay for the house. What it does is it gives you 10,000 well, this was several years ago. The numbers might be higher now because of inflation, but it would give you 10,000 to put down as a down payment,
okay.
and then 10,000 for home repairs. I think it's increased by now. This was I don't know, 15 years ago. And that and then you pay like interest on that for 30 years if you live in the house, but if you
Hmm.
sell the house you have to pay back the interest before you close out the sale.
So that's something that I have not heard once happening in Hernando. I'm not saying it doesn't happen elsewhere. It could easily. I mean, again, you look at the makeups of each county. We've got a dozen counties that again have a population bigger than a couple of states, so I wouldn't be surprised. And if that is a program that Indian River is being utilized in, then more power to them. I just haven't heard about that once in Hernando's case.
Oh,
So you
okay,
actually got
so
me
yours
intrigued. I
is
want to check with my
different.
director. Say again.
Yeah, so yours might be different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every county
because
is a little
ours
different because it's got to be based on what we got going on in the place. You know, Hernando County, we keep growing, we're thriving in many ways, but that's just not something that has been done. I mean, you know, you got some cases where Hernando's starting to look into a little because I was talking with my director about it. Is Pasco County and Citrus County now have, for example, they have HUD-VASH communities. They have small communities of like, I think they approved the new one in Pasco that Congressman Belarakis got the funding for, and that's going to be like over 100 homes built, and it's just going to be veteran subsidized housing, is what that is. So it could be something like that. Hernando hasn't done that yet, but they're looking into it because we're sandwiched in between Citrus and Pasco, who are both doing it.
Right. So like our county receives so much money and then it has an application process for the
Hmm.
ship. And then those recipients that receive the ship, if like for example, if they went into their home at 5% interest and then the interest rates drop to 2% and they refinance it, they could refinance it and get an FHA and then return that ship money back to the
Okay.
county, and then it would open it back up to another recipient that's on the waiting list.
Okay. Yeah. See, like I said, so that shows something a different way that Indian River's doing things, and that's good because again, you got to go to your market. I mean, you know, I keep mentioning veterans. You know, you know me, I'm a veteran myself, so that's one I
Hmm.
notice on a lot. Florida is a very veteran friendly state. We have a lot of veterans, but there are some counties that only have so much veterans, and meanwhile, some counties that have a lot. So, as that example, there are going to be counties that only will do so much HUD-VASH programming and projects and so on and so forth. And it looks like, oh, do they not care about veterans? They don't have a lot. It could be the case. So, in Indian River's case, that could fit the demographics of what's needed in Indian River County. That they want more people to get approved to help get homes and everything. And again, that just goes back to how the demographics in each and what the makeup is. I mean, Florida is a big state. I mean, I've literally driven from Pensacola to Key West, not all at once. That's insane. I couldn't do that. But I've been to the entire state, and we have so many different subcultures in one state. It's one thing to be in a place like Rhode Island or Delaware, big population, very small space. In Florida's case, I mean, it takes me 6 hours ish just to get to Pensacola. It takes me 5 hours to get to Miami, and there's still the 2 to 3 hours to Key West from there. So much cultures. I mean, you know how it is. You drive
Yeah, and
two
then when
counties
you
north of you, and you're in a different culture.
yep, and then when you come over to the East Coast here, it takes you a little over 3 hours or 3 hours,
Yeah.
depending on how you're driving. That's like I don't like going to your side of the world because that's a different culture from Indian River
Hey, hey,
County.
hey! Don't knock the West Coast. West Side, baby.
So, hey, let's take a commercial break and come back. I really wanted to ask you about what's going on with Kristi Nome and, Iran. And I just wanted to have those talks with you because I always love to hear your side of the view. So let's stop for a commercial and we'll be right back.
There's a kind of strength you can't buy or borrow. It's born in the fire, tempered by sacrifice, and carried by those who never stopped serving. Some heroes wear uniforms. Others wear scars. They're veterans, first responders, and Gold Star families. Men and women who gave everything and still keep giving. At the Warrior Shield Foundation, we stand beside them, shoulder to shoulder, providing the support, the care, and the community they deserve. We're a proud non-profit, a 501c3, built to protect those who protect us. We don't just serve our own. We help other non-profits reach their missions too, because together, we make the Shield stronger. Donate and help our cause, help their cause, because every act of kindness builds hope where the battle still rages inside. Join the mission. Donate today. Visit warriorshield.org, because heroes deserve a foundation as strong as their sacrifice.
Hey, John, we're back. So, hey, John, I'm going to put you on the spot and see if you remember. Do you remember the first time we met?
Oh God. Um, was that at the Capitol?
It was.
Yeah. Um,
It was, and we were following you all around because you knew where everybody was in the
yep.
Capitol. And for anybody who's listening, the Capitol is confusing the first time you go because you have to walk through these like tunnel hallways to get to other buildings, and
Yeah.
then elevators go to certain floors, and we just followed you like little kids. You knew where everything was. We even went to the representatives that you had appointments with.
Yeah.
And that was the day I lost my jacket that had my car keys in it. And remember, it was cold.
Yeah. I
And
remember that.
Lamar and I were like, we got to get our car.
Yeah. I remember that. And quick thing is like for everybody is, she's talking about the Florida Capitol, not the U.S. Capitol, but everything she said still applies. It's just as confusing. I've been there once, and I'm about to go back there next month. So yeah, it's just as confusing. The Florida Capitol is quite unique. I've been to many state capitals on my travels. I was actually just at the Arizona Capitol, and Florida is one of the more complex ones. Trust me. There's some complex ones. There's some easy ones. Florida is easy once you understand it, but it's complex until you understand it.
Yeah, it was, that was just funny. And us girls had our heels on. We know better now. We don't go with our heels.
You got to be like, what's the joke? The Supreme Court, all the news interns, like the news is not allowed to be in the Supreme Court, so they have these interns when they make the ruling, and everyone, male, female, they wear sneakers because they gotta get in there, get the notes when they make the ruling, and then they gotta run out there so they can be the first ones. So that's what you got to do is wear sneakers. You don't want to wear all the legislative aides. The female aides will tell you they have two pairs of footwear underneath their desk. They'll have their heels or whatever they're wearing for normal, and then they have their sneakers when they have to walk around.
Yeah, I took your lead. I got long skirts now and I have cowboy boots. I went to the Western store and got me some nice cowboy boots to fit under my skirts.
So to be fair, she took my lead on the boots, not the skirts. I don't wear
Yeah,
them.
I took the lead on your boots because you're always looking like a cowboy when you're up
Yeah.
there.
Well, it's part of my look, and I've come to enjoy it. I may not have the accent all the time, but trust me, it's who I am. I'm an outdoorsman. I'm a country boy.
Yeah, I got to give you kudos for remembering. I was like, I'm going to put him on the spot. So, girls, are you single still?
Yes, I am.
As a man that can remember dates.
Yeah.
And I mean time dates, not like dating. I mean, well, he probably could remember that too.
Well, yeah. I mean, anything can happen. I mean, I'm at least lucky the VA actually diagnosed me with memory problems back in the day. So if I forget something, at least I got a backup plan. She's like, oh look, it's just my condition. I'm sorry, and it
Yeah.
might just be that I just forgot. But hey,
So, John, man, I really wanted to talk to you about what's going on. Christy Nome, she's
yeah.
transitioned. out of DHS secretary into a
Yeah.
new position.
Yeah.
And she's so she's going to be transitioning into the special envoy for the Shield of the Americas. Do you know what
Yeah.
that is?
So a special envoy is like an ambassador on a specific topic, is what there is. President Trump, I think, is breaking a record, probably since at least World War II. I could only bet that during that time we had other kinds of envoys. Um, but they are a special type of ambassador for specific roles. So, for example, Tom Homan is known as the border czar. That's technically like an envoy, but it's a domestic envoy. He's staying within. That's why they don't use that. An envoy is for overseas stuff. So it could literally be dealing with Canada. It could be dealing with some other stuff. Like we have an extra envoy for the United Kingdom. We have an ambassador to the Court of St. James, which is the full title for the U.S. ambassador to the U.K. But we have a separate special envoy to just the U.K. as well. We have Rick Grinnell, who was in Trump's first term was the ambassador to Germany, and then later the acting director of national intelligence. He's now one of the special envoys to the Middle East. You got Steve Witkoff does the same thing. What this special envoyship that President Trump created for Kristi Noem is you've heard the term, the Don Road Doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
That's been floated around. I think they're calling it the Trump corollary or the Don Road corollary, something like that as well. The Monroe Doctrine from President James Monroe, mostly made up by then Secretary of State John Quincy Adams, later our sixth president, was the Western Hemisphere is our domain. No new colonialism coming out from European nations. This is our area. If you still have a colony, you have free reign on that, but you're not
Mm-hmm.
on anymore. Any nations that have declared independence from Spain, France, Britain, that's it. You're not getting involved. And the Don Road Doctrine that President Trump's pushing is the same thing. And that's where Kristi Noem's coming into play with this new envoyship, is that basically her job is going to be to coordinate with these nations and our ambassadors on this topic. Like this is okay. Right now, I'm the ambassador to Brazil. You're the ambassador to Argentina. We coordinate with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and if we have to have a call with the president on the odd chance. But now we're going to have this extra person we're dealing with because literally President Trump's going to talk to Kristi Noem, and this is her job. And she's going to be like, this is what I want. This is what Brazil needs to do. This is what Argentina needs to do. This is what Colombia needs to do, so on. She's going to be now having the calls or having the messages or having the in-person meetings, flying to Brazil or flying to Argentina or being back in DC. And we fly up to DC and meet with her. And we're going to learn what our role is in the thing. If there's something going on with Javier Milei in Argentina and President Trump wants this, and because of the influence of, say, Russia or China, or Brazil, because Petrobras, the largest oil corporation over in Brazil, maybe they're doing a lot of business over with India and Russia and China. That's where the BRICS comes in, the B in BRICS, BRICS.
Mm-hmm.
B is Brazil. Maybe they got that going on. Maybe so President Trump wants, hey, less oil, keep the oil going to India. They're nice people, but China, Russia, we don't want them dealing with that. Bring more of the oil here. So now, and that's a scenario. I'm not even saying that's like real, but that
Right.
could be a scenario that President Trump tells Kristi Noem she's got to come and meet with us, and she's telling, hey, you're the ambassador to Argentina. These are the things we got to get this stuff going. President Milei is working great with us, but then she's going to look at me and say, you're the ambassador to Brazil. The president there is not too friendly, but we got to put some more strength on and pressure and say, hey, this is what the president wants and build that. Less influence from China, Russia, et cetera, whatever it may be. Again, that's a hypothetical scenario, but a realistic hypothetical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was happy to see that he was moving her and pulling Mullen from Senate to
Yeah,
get into that position because I remember when he pulled Rubio, I was really happy about that because there were some things Rubio was doing in Florida I wasn't very happy with.
yeah,
And I was like, yes, now that position's open for somebody new to come in because
yeah.
otherwise he would have been in there forever.
Right.
And look at Rubio now. He's like shining, like he's
Oh, yeah.
like a diamond in the rough right now. He
I
is.
hear enough people, quick cutoff, I'm sorry. There's enough people saying that they would rather vote for Rubio than JD in 2028. There's some
Yeah.
polls being done that show the same thing. Patrick Bet David, the PBD podcast, I watched them a couple of weeks back. They did a poll. Over 6,000 people live immediately did a poll, and 55% said Rubio over JD.
I know everybody's doing that. I mean, I won't vote for him for president, but
Yeah.
I think he's totally in his element, and it makes me happy to see him there because he's doing such a
Oh
great
yeah,
job for the United States. And I'm thinking I wasn't really happy with Mullen in Senate. I thought he was too moderate. He wasn't voting strongly on those constitutional bills, and I thought he needed to work harder to be America first and be
yeah,
on Trump's side. But I think we might see the same thing with Mullen. This might be his element where he really shines and takes off. And now we have an opportunity to have somebody else get into the Senate that's not voting on bills at 25, 30%, or like
yeah,
Murkowski does.
yeah,
We need to get people like that out of the Senate
yeah.
and get some real America first people in there.
Yeah, I was really surprised. Like you said, I mean, he's kind of moderate. Mullen's not a bad senator by no means. When you look at people like a Collins or Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski,
Hmm.
um, he could be better, but he's not bad. He's enough for you to be like, yeah, okay, well, we'll deal with him. He's got some good views. I wish he would push harder on this stuff, but yeah, he's not bad. Sometimes he really outshines. But you're right, Homeland Security is going to fit him very well. I
Hmm.
am surprised actually still that he picked him just because now this is the golden goose that Governor Stitt gets. Kevin Stitt's the governor of Oklahoma, and Trump is not the biggest fan of Stitt, but now this is the best prize he can give to Stitt because Stitt now gets to pick the next senator. Now Mullins was finishing up this year. It was actually up in the air whether or not he was going to run for another term. I think he wasn't even going to. And so now making him Secretary of Homeland Security moves him into that. And the only thing now is that whoever Governor Stitt picks will have the incumbency benefit. There's a lot of people looking at running. There's like two members of Congress or legislature that are looking at announcing that they're going to run the second Mullins is confirmed. Like one congressman is just waiting to make sure that the Senate confirms Mullins as secretary, and that's not until the end of the month. Once that happens, then they're going to announce. So whoever Governor Stitt picks is going to have that incumbency benefit. And I do like Governor Stitt. President Trump doesn't like him too much. He's actually been pretty good. He's liberty minded and constitutional in the state of Oklahoma. But at the same time, he still has some conflict with the president and stuff, or vice versa. So there's that. But I am still surprised because that is one of the best things. Like that was the same thing with Rubio was now it gave Governor DeSantis the best bet that he could pick somebody. And most people say he's knocked it out of the park with picking Ashley Moody, who's pushed some really good bills. So we'll see. There's some
Yeah,
names
very
in mind.
happy with Ashley Moody.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens if he's going to do the same thing as Mike DeWine did, where he picked the Lieutenant Governor Husted to become the senator when JD became VP. I don't know if Stitt's going to do the same thing. Someone was actually asking me, "You think he's just going to?" Because Stitt terms out as governor this year. Someone said, "Do you think there's a chance that he'll resign so his lieutenant governor can become the governor and then appoint him?" And it's possible. Legally, that's allowed. No governor can appoint themselves as the senator. That's not legally allowed. But they can resign, and then the lieutenant governor becomes the governor and appoints them. That's happened twice in history, and both
Hmm.
times that happened, when said governor turned senator ran for a full election, they lost. So
Oh.
it's a risky move, actually, if Stitt does it. Stitt's popular in Oklahoma, so that's a possibility, but we'll see what happens.
So we're marking our history here because Mullen's the first senator to move out of the Senate to take another position. So that's pretty cool. I'm
Yeah.
wondering what caught Trump's attention to choose Mullen.
So he's had some interesting moments. I mean, what was that one moment? Was it the Teamsters head where he had said something about wanting to have a fight with Mullins, and so Mullins read it out on stage, and then he's like, "Well, this is the place to do it. Are you, you want to go for it?" And like literally, the guy called him back out, and Mullins stood up and went to go, and the chair of the committee had to tell him to sit down. And if you watch the video, you can hear Bernie Sanders yelling, which is just always funny. But yeah, it's just like there's that moment. Mullins has been pretty good when it comes to the border, when it comes to immigration enforcement, but he is a word you used before. He's moderate in tone. Now he's moderate. You could say he's moderate on other stuff as well, on topics, sure, but in his tone, he's moderate because while Kristi Noem has done a lot of decent amount of work for Trump and she's shown her loyalty to him, she's had a few dings in the last bit, and that's why they had to move her out. Mullins can come in as a moderate tone. Tom Homan, when he's on committee, he's going firm and hard about the topic and everything, but most of the time he is actually, moderate in his tone, in his voice.
Mhm.
And, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you have to always be like that, but he could be that soft spoken voice that's still able to get the job done, but not come off as brash or attention seeking or any of that kind of stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I would be surprised if he had trouble getting, sworn in, you
Right.
know?
Um,
I think he'll have no problem getting sworn in.
yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it'll be a problem either. Um, he's probably one of the safer bets from the Senate that the president could have picked, and so we'll see what happens. It might be close because we've got 53 senators right now, if I remember right. Yeah, 53 senators. If Mullins does the professional route, he will vote present, which is the same thing Jeff Sessions did when he was being considered for attorney general back in the day, as an example. He could just vote president, so that knocks it down to 52, which is still good. But do Murkowski, Collins, and McConnell make the vote? And I don't think McConnell likes Mullins too much, so that might be one. And Collins, I think, would confirm him, and Murkowski probably would as well. So that still gives him 51 votes, and that's all that's needed.
Well, and I think if Collins and Murkowski confirm him, other people will follow suit,
Oh yeah,
you
it's
know?
possible. There may be one or two Democrats that'll confirm. There might be a couple people that want to vote him in as Secretary of Homeland Security just because now that gets him out of the Senate. They don't have to deal with him on a regular basis, and then when he's got to testify in front of committee, they get the hound on him. Sometimes that's why people love. There are times people will endorse somebody or help support somebody to get into something just because it gets them out of their wheelhouse they already have them in. It's like, I'm not stuck with them anymore. I can think of
Mhm.
I can think of an elected person right now um, in Congress that's literally what happened. Is that a lot of people supported just because they didn't want to deal with them anymore.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask you on another topic, Operation Epic Fury. No deal with
What's
Iran.
going on there? It's not like there's anything big happening.
Ep no deal with Iran, unconditional.
Yep, it's interesting. It truly is. I mean, we've gotten I think the reports are what over 40 leaders so far between the Ayatollah, um, military leaders, leaders from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and a couple of political leaders. And it's been alleged that they with the new Supreme Council that they made a new acting Ayatollah, and allegedly that person got hit as well. So who knows if that part's true? I've only seen a little bit about that, but that's just showing that you know the idea of pushing an unconditional surrender is a big deal because, um, again, that means they can't make any terms. People wonder, like, well, what does a conditional surrender mean? Or an unconditional? It means are there conditions? Can they make a claim like, oh, well, we want this person to stay? Like when the Japanese tried to surrender to us, they initially had like four conditions they wanted to play, and they knocked it down to one thing. They had one condition: we want the emperor to stay in power, and they sent that to us. And the U.S. government said no. We agreed with the British and we agreed with the Soviets. No conditions. You can't make any. Now, in the end, we ended up doing that because the smart move was to keep the emperor involved to let the people feel like they still had a thing for a future. But that's the whole thing about what a conditional surrender is. Unconditional is just you surrender. You don't get to make any terms. You don't even get to say, hey, give us a day or two so we can flee and you guys can take over. Like, when President Bush told Saddam Hussein, you and your sons have 2 days or 2 weeks or whatever it was to try to get yourself and get out of Iraq before we move in. And of course, they stayed in there.
Mm.
We gave them a condition to give them the chance to flee before we moved in. So that's the reverse case. It's going to be fun to see what happens. Well, not really fun, but you know what I mean. It's going to be interesting to see what happens
Yeah, because
going
we're
going
talking
further.
about Iran and this tyrannical regime, and I know Carolyn Levitt was talking, and she was saying Trump was thinking of a 4 to 6 week projected timeline.
Yeah.
I'm like, when in the Middle East has anything ever been done in such a short period of time?
So the reason for that, if people are counting the number of days, because it's already been a week so far, they're trying to do 4 to 6 weeks to make it feel like it's only so long. but then also give themselves a little bit of a buffer, because what people don't realize is the War Powers Act of 1973. That's come on with the news every so often. I remember seeing an interview recently Nancy Mace did talking about it. Because people keep saying only Congress has the power to declare war. The president is the commander in chief of the military, but it's a separation of powers, and this is true. But at the same time, what people don't bother to point out is there have been times in history where the Constitution does say something, but then in the authority of one branch of government, they have ceded some authority. So, for example, when it came to tariffs, the whole reason of the battle of tariffs recently, well, that's because the Constitution does say that Congress has the ability to set tariffs. But there have been bills that they have passed that allows the president to set his own or her own tariffs at certain times. And then that's where the whole the Emergencies Act that came, was it IEPA, that President Trump was citing, that the Supreme Court made a ruling on. He's still allowed to make tariffs in other cases. The same thing goes with the War Powers Act, is that Congress in 1973 voted, this was at the downturn of Vietnam with Nixon, was that they passed this act that allows the president up to 60 days of almost carte blanche authority. Now, someone's going to go off and get mad and be like, that's not exactly what it says. But in some ways, that's kind of how it is, that they gave him a 60-day carte blanche authority to do something as they see fit. And then they have to be out in 60 days, or if they need an extra 30 days to get the troops to draw down and come out in a safe manner, so it can actually move up to 90 days. So with the president pushing 4 to 6 weeks, that's their way of saying this is going to be a prolonged attack, Iran. We're not stopping. It's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard on Friday. Yeah, we're not going to be done by Tuesday. That's what it is. It's not because Congress is trying to figure out what they're going to do. This is the president's way of saying we're going to do this for a while, but it's also within the War Powers Act timeframe that Congress can only do so much to limit. And that's why they were trying to do the one vote recently to limit or codify Trump's abilities with Iran, and it died in it didn't make it through the vote, was because they were trying to pull back some of the War Powers Act ability, is that's the case. But notice it was also only about Iran. So they was trying to still leave the ability for the War Powers Act in place while trying to limit it in the case of Iran specifically. So that just means that any future president, if they want to use it on Iraq or China or Russia or India or wherever, the War Powers Act would still be in play. But Iran would be the one thing that's limited, which is the funny thing about that.
Yeah, that they knocked that down. It was like what, 212 to I
Yeah.
forget. It was like 202 to 212 or something like that.
Yeah, it was a very close vote, but it in the end, it didn't make it through, which is good. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So I think Trump's been doing a really good job, hitting their ships, hitting the nuclear.
Hmm.
I'm sorry that we lost some men. I don't like hearing that.
Yeah.
But we do have an amazing military
Yeah.
that's taking care of us. But what do you think about China? China's really going to be feeling the choke on this now,
Yeah.
because they relied on Venezuela and Iran for oil.
Yeah, a lot. So
That's like 95%, you know?
50% of all the oil from Venezuela goes to China. And we took care of Maduro, and now Delcy Rodriguez is working with us. And if you saw the interview she just did, what was it, yesterday, with Secretary Burgum, he's the Secretary of the Interior. Someone's like, why is he in play? Because he's also the chairman of the National Energy Council. So that's why he was down there. But then when it comes to Iran, 87% is, I think it was like 87%, well over 80% of all the oil that comes out of Iran goes to China. So if you look at the bigger picture, Trump has been hitting a lot of things to weaken China's ability. China gets its oil or its LNGs and all that kind of stuff. It gets it from Venezuela. It gets it from Iran. It gets it from other Middle Eastern countries. It gets it from Russia. Russia's bogged down in their 4-year war so far with Ukraine. They can only send so much to China. Well, okay, China focuses on Venezuela and the Middle East. Well, Venezuela, that ain't happening anytime soon, so that knocked down. And then the Middle East, they were getting destroyed straight of Hormuz. If you look at how it's set up, we always talk about the Horn of Africa, like Somalia. There's a horn on the Arabian Peninsula, and that's the United Arab Emirates. And the Gulf and everything comes through, and it comes to this small little strait that ships can come through. That's the Strait of Hormuz, which is governed by the UAE and Iran especially. By Iran shutting down the strait and saying no ships can come through, that knocked out the traffic. 5 million barrels a day of oil would come from the middle, would come through the Strait of Hormuz, that would go straight over to China. And that's what they're losing now. They get about 700. The one map I saw, they get 1.4 million barrels a day from Iran, 1.5 out of Saudi Arabia. They also get from Qatar, they'll get from Iraq, they'll get from a few other places. The only one that's safe to come out is Oman because they're on the other side of the strait. All the other countries are inside the Strait of Hormuz. So now with that thing being
Hmm.
shut down, that's hurting them. There's
Yeah.
reports coming that says that they'll be out of oil for the most part in about 21 days,
Yeah,
3 days, three
that was a
weeks.
great strategic plan there. I was looking at the map myself and I was saying, well, if they wanted to try to get some oil, they'd have to go all the way to the other side, and
Yep.
that would just take so long
Oh yeah.
to get it.
Oh yeah. Like Saudi
It's still
Arabia's got some I think oil that goes through a port or two off their western coast through like the Suez Canal and the Red Sea and all that.
Mhm.
But the amount that comes through from the opposing side through the Strait of Hormuz, that is a severe amount. And Saudi Arabia is not a small country; it's a big sandbox, and that's not making fun of them. It's mostly that's what it is, and so it's very hard to get all the oil through a pipeline or through trucks to drive it from east to west to get on the ships like that. That's going to bog down a lot. And Saudi Arabia, they know they're going to be hurting economically a little bit because that's how they make a lot of their money, but they know in the long run they're going to be much better and safer because the biggest threat to Saudi Arabia in the Middle East has actually been Iran. It's these two
Mhm.
dueling nations for decades upon over who's the stronger one. And while Saudi Arabia, people have reservations about them, they try to play the calmer one for the most part. Iran has been the opposite. And so to Saudi Arabia, they're going to take this short term disbenefit and loss of money, but it's going to come back and pay for them in the long run.
Yeah, well, it's gonna affect China's suppliers
Oh, yeah.
too, and I think Japan gets caught up in that too, where
Yeah,
they
they're
get
going to get caught
affected,
up.
you
They'll
know?
get caught up as well. But
But
you
at the
know,
same time, we get a lot of stuff from China, so are they gonna try to retaliate now and, you know, deny us of some shipments? We get medicines from them, I
so
mean.
they could. I'm trying to think this out. They could, but at the same time, Trump and Secretary Rubio and I cannot remember. I apologize. The name of the ambassador to China that we have, but they could be talking to Xi Jinping and all them and saying, "Hey, you want to fight us in these tariff wars? We can fight. We still have some ways that we can fight with the tariff wars, and this is hurting you guys. Yeah, you can try to stop some of the stuff that comes made in China that comes to the U.S. That's fine. We'll try to use the moment to push more made in America or even made in Vietnam stuff." But at the same time, you guys are going to be the ones hurting, and China now is going to need um, China's going to need some kind of deal now to make things better for them. I mean, and you can see this case in point in the fact that China didn't react. And what I mean by that is when people would look at these major nations that were like the semi opposition to the US to outright
Mhm,
opposition, you look at the presidents of Russia, similar leadership, the presidents of Russia, of China, of Iran, of India. India is our ally, but they also work with the opposing side. India is India's side. Whose side is India on? India. And there's ways that benefits us as well. But they'll work with both sides and strengthen themselves up. They are the largest nation on the planet now by population. They surpass China. So
really?
India's in,
So they're not in 3rd place anymore,
nope,
they
they
first?
surpassed China.
Wow. Holy
Yep.
cow.
China's finally feeling the effects from the whole one child policy from decades back. And then also just not as many people are having kids. The Indian culture is still big about having kids. So they've surpassed China. They're the largest nation on the planet now in terms of population. So India's in their own league, and we can work with them. But in China's case, they're hurting so much now. But going back to it with these leaders, China's hurting, but they didn't react. Russia
Mhm,
didn't react to the attacks on the Ayatollah other than making a condemnation. Why did they not get involved? Because they're busy with the war in Ukraine. Russia's
mhm.
been so busy, they've been losing their own allies. They couldn't help back up Bashar al-Assad in Syria. They couldn't help defend the Armenians with the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict with Azerbaijan. There's wonders if they're going to even be able to maintain stuff when it comes to Transnistria over there in Moldova, which at least is on the opposing side of Ukraine. That's the only reason why things haven't toppled there. But they've been losing. They haven't been able to because their eyes been off the ball because they're focused on stuff in Ukraine. They can't afford to send their oil or their natural gas down to
No, and they're
China as much
using
as
all
they need
their
it themselves.
resources themselves.
They need it themselves. And then the same thing goes with China, though. China didn't react either, other than making a condemnation, because what can they do? Get involved in the conflict, make things even worse? I mean, think about it. Iran, and I'm going all over the place. Apologies. Iran, after we attacked them, after the Israelis attacked them as well, they shot their missiles, and where did they hit? They hit Saudi Arabia. They hit the business district in Qatar or Bahrain, near the naval base in Bahrain, but also hit the town. They hit the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. They hit all these places, and the thought was this will scare these nations, hurt their economy, hurt their business, hurt their people, and they're going to try to tell America and Israel, get out. We don't want you. The opposite happened. All these nations are now behind us now. Jordan, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, they attacked Jordan as well. I don't even know why, but Jordan's on our side as well. So we're building a coalition because of Iran's moves. China's looking at this going, why are we going to do anything? Because Iran made the dumb move to attack these, thinking it's going to want these nations to tell America go home. Instead, it aligned them with us. So now if China wants to get involved with Iran, it's going to be Iran and China and maybe Pakistan a little bit, not officially with the Pakistani government. They're trying to work with us. But the coalition is the United States, to lesser extents the UK, France, Italy, Spain, very less amount with that. But then the Middle East, Jordan's with us, Saudi Arabia's with us, Kuwait's with us, Iraq is with us. I mean, the ground operation that looks to be happening now with the Iraqi Kurds, all these nations are on our side. It would literally just be China and Iran. And if China got involved, it would literally possibly start World War III in a way, and China can't afford to do that yet. And if they even get involved and doesn't do that war, but continues an economic war, it's going to hurt them even longer. It's better off for them to just stay out of it and say, can we work on simmering the fires a little bit? Can we put some water on this fire and calm it down? And as long as they stay out of it, that can be done.
Well, China's smart. You don't react right away.
Right.
You gotta sit back, look, and because they know Trump is he's the guy that's not going to put up with the Biden crap. You know, we
Right.
had Biden. He's a total different person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about the Iranians and their fight because they're all unarmed, but they have the Kurds over there. Um,
Yeah.
the Kurds are going to help them out.
Yeah. So,
So and then what I was hearing is we're not going to put boots on the ground over there, but
mhm.
we will give them what they need
Yeah.
to fight their war.
Yeah. So, I mean, special forces will probably be on the ground, but that's just always the case if need be. But you're right. So, for those that don't know, the Kurds is a separate group of people, ethnically people, the Kurdish people. Kurdistan used to be a whole region of places. It was never like probably hundreds and hundreds of years back that there was actually like a Kurdish nation and stuff like that. And Kurdistan is split up into four countries. It's southeastern Turkey, it's northern Iraq, it's eastern and parts of northern Syria, and then it's northwestern Iran. Iran's actually got the least amount of it. And so they've been split up, and this goes back to the Sykes-Picot Agreement between the Brits and the French after World War One, after they took all the land from the Ottoman Empire. Um, Kurdistan in Iraq is the only one actually organized as a government. They were always around and stuff like that. And then after the Desert Storm in 91, the U.S. pushed on Saddam to allow some autonomy to the Kurdish region, and they've gotten stronger over the years. And since we came in 2003, we've maintained the ability for the Kurdish government to exist as an autonomous region in Iraq. It's still Iraq, but it's a separate region in and of itself. And the Iraqi government works with them in ways. So what's happening is you have the Kurdish people in Iran, Eastern Kurdistan, as they call it. I think they call it like Rojak or something like that. I forgot the term. I know it's Rojava in Syria. And these guys are trying to build up and, uprise and try to help push support for those Kurdish regions in Iran. The Kurdish government in Iraq, which the capital is called Erbil, Erbil, they have their own paramilitary force called the Peshmerga. It's kind of like a Kurdish army. It's actually well-trained, well-equipped people and soldiers. These guys are likely to be the ones that's going to be moving over into a ground operation, working with the Iranian Kurds to start taking over and liberating parts of northwestern and western Iran, and go and work from there. And it's going to slowly start weakening the control that Iran has in that region. Now, what's likely to happen? Well, the IRGC and the Iranian military is going to headquarters stuff probably 100 miles west of Tehran as a buffer zone, but away from Tehran. That way, Air Force is not coming and trying to bomb a brigade of soldiers in
Mm.
Tehran, which now hits government buildings and all that. But it creates that buffer. And if the Peshmerga and the Iranian Kurds start taking over areas, these troops can start moving in. But what happens when they start moving in is you have less troops here as the buffer between them and Tehran, and it'll actually weaken the amount of defenses that they can do in Tehran at the same time. So this will be a very interesting thing. I wouldn't be surprised if some Kurds from Syria might try to get involved, but they had to deal with their own stuff after the whole fallout from the fall of Assad.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of support to defeat that regime
Yeah,
there, a lot of support. So I'm hoping, because I remember when Iran was a lot like us,
yeah,
and I was a kid, I was young, but they dressed like us, they
yep.
were free like us, they very similar. If you took
Hmm.
pictures of them there and pictures of us here, you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, Reza Shah Pahlavi was it was pretty much an absolute monarchy back in the days of the Iranian kingdom, the kingdom of Persia, the Iranian Empire, however they called it. Apologies, but Reza Shah Pahlavi, the Shah, he ran things like that, and they were very much westernized. And like you said, and it's if you watch a video, I've watched videos of what it was like back in the '70s, and it was interesting because if you watch the videos, most of the vehicles were French, like Renaults and all that stuff. So you watch these videos, and you would think you're watching like, okay, is this like some areas in like southern France or something? It was actually quite something to see. But then you have to be reminded, no, that's actually Iran, that's Tehran, that's
Mhm.
Persia,
From the
and
hairdos and the style of clothing,
yep,
everything.
it
It
was
just
it was beautiful, and that's why like
Mhm.
I've loved seeing some of the videos. I made a post recently, and some people were criticizing. Notice how the feminists aren't coming out and getting mad, and they're coming out and getting mad with the stuff happening with Iran. But it's like you have these videos of Iranian women taking off their abayas and their burqas and all that. Now they're clothed underneath, for the record, but they're taking it off because they're thinking this is the end of the Islamic Republic, because Iran is one of only two countries, along with Saudi Arabia, if I remember right. They have like a religious police force. They are very strict. That's why it's called the Islamic Republic. Their mindset is you must follow strict Sharia law. Now, if I remember, I believe Iran was I believe there's Shia over there in Iran, but there's Sunni and then there's Shia and all that. I'm trying to remember. Apologies on that, but they're very strict on the rules, and that's why women have to be fully clothed and all that. And there's a lot of limitations on them. These Iranian women are taking this stuff off, thinking that this is not going to be the rules anymore. They're going to be back to either a normal republic, or maybe they're going to go back to being a kingdom, whatever it may be. They're going to go back to the old ways where the women don't even feel oppressed anymore, which I am
Mhm.
hopeful to see. Because as
Me
you
too.
said, you watch these videos. There's so many places I cite this, and I know I keep going. I go a little off tangent. I try to bring it back. I want to see Cuba flourish like it used to be when it was the gem of the Caribbean. I want to see Venezuela thrive once again, like how Maracaibo and Caracas used to be. And I want to see Iran go back to the days of what it once was. There are things, maybe you could say, oh, there was stuff from back then that should be changed and not now. That's fine. But it was a lot more freer. It was a
Yeah, they
lot
were
more thriving.
liberated, yeah.
It was a wonderful country back in the day. I wasn't around for it, but you know me, I'm a history buff. I love watching documentaries,
Mhm.
and you saw how great it was. Turkey is one of the best examples to cite from that, if I may. The last tangent on this is, I really studied Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the father of the Turks. He's the one who helped. He was a general during the World War One, and when it was thought that they were going to carve up what was left of the Ottoman Empire, he got all the Turks to rise up and do a rebellion against the Sultan and what was left of the Ottoman government, and they took what was their parts left and created what's now the Republic of Turkey. And he westernized the country. He took them from having the Turkish language from Arabic alphabet to a Latin based alphabet, just like us, a little different, just like how German's a little different, Polish is a little different, etc. But Latin based alphabet. He created the concept of having last names, like we have in the Western world. He created so many other things that Turkey, while being an Islamic, a Muslim nation, is a westernized Muslim nation and a wonderful country. So many people to this day go to Istanbul and Ankara, the capital, and many other places. And Turkey is a wonderful, beautiful country. It's thriving.
Well, they have
And
beautiful artwork there too. I mean,
exactly.
if you go into any of the Islamic buildings, that
Right.
their big centerpieces usually come from Turkey, and they're very intricate,
Right.
and it takes several people to put those things together. It's just
Exactly. And that's what happened 100 years ago in Turkey. That happened in Iran when the Shah got put back in power back in the day after like World War II, and Iran was thriving. So I want to see this happen yet again for them. Some people will say, well, not everything has to be westernized, and that's fair. We've come to realize that in places like Afghanistan and parts of Pakistan. But Iran, the people want it. The people do not like how the government is in Iran. When you see all the reports, the problem is the government is so controlling that people can't uprise against them until now.
Well, look what happened when Trump bombed Iran and
Yep.
took out. Everybody was in the streets. They were out happy,
Yeah.
praising. They're singing to Trump, thanking
Yep.
him. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how oppressed they are or
Oh
they
yeah.
were, I don't know what will. I mean, they were just dancing and singing, and they were so happy, and it made me happy to see them
Yep.
that way. Because I see what's happening in the United States now. We're the next country that they're wanting to change the regime of, and so it's kind of something that we need to pay attention to, because they don't go to other Islamic countries to do this. They go
Right.
to countries that are more westernized to change it, and that's the goal of it. So
Yeah.
what do so John, do you think we're going to really have a long period of where we're going to be struggling? Because oil prices, I've already seen it, you've seen it. I went and put gas in my pickup truck today, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh damn,
Yeah.
it's
What is gas in
already
your area?
getting
For me, it's 3.49 over here.
it. Oh, that's high. I put it in my tank, so it was 3.44. So
Ah,
I
lucky
put
you. You
almost.
guys are cheap.
Yeah, but it's still, I got a big pickup truck, so
Yeah.
it still was like $60.
Oh yeah.
But
I think the president knows the last thing we need is a long war. The what is it? The attack, if you want to call it, the operation into Venezuela was quick and decisive, and we now know that everything is basically without it actually being said. It's been out there now. The vice president, now interim president, was working with the White House or military commands or whoever. They were working with the U.S. to organize this. We now know that. Clearly, that's not happening with Iran. But the president knows long drawn out conflicts are not good. Um, this needs to be done pretty fast. And there was even a joke, because it kind of goes back to the whole, government contracts and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy what can get done and how fast it can get done when no one's trying to make money, because of the idea of how government contracts are. This
mhm,
his goal is going to be to not be a long war. The president doesn't want Ukraine and Russia to continue being at war for the most part either. He tried to get a lot of that stuff taken care of as well, but a lot of headaches go on with that. This one, at least, that was us trying to play mediator. This is something we're directly involved. He knows the last thing we can do is be drawn out. And especially with it being an election year, if he can get this stuff taken care of and the Islamic, um, the Supreme Islamic Council and the government of that collapses and they all resign and they all flee, and we're able to see a real transition in the Iranian government, whether the crown prince gets involved, he's outright said that he's already accepted the position to be transitional leader. This is the son of the Shah, the crown prince, Reza Pahlavi. He said he'll be the transitional leader. That could actually lead to them bringing back the monarchy, but maybe like a constitutional monarchy like the UK
mhm,
does, which would still work. If we can see that happen and we see a lot of flourishment and success going on in Iran pretty quick, that helps us out with the elections. Now that sounds selfish, but that's one of the nature of the beast in politics, and we know the president's thinking that in a way. But also at the same time, it'll help out in the long run because if we can see immediate ending in the next 2 months, that helps out for the elections this year. If we get it done within this year, and we see Iran truly flourishing, getting better, freedoms being installed, and given to the people, and especially to the women, to not have that oppression anymore, and a lot of other things. If we see all that happen and things start growing in the next year or two, even better when it comes for the 2028 election, because we showed the success. And
mhm,
the funny thing is, when we're not going, the president's not going after leaders that are good, bad, whatever. He's not going after Putin. He's not going after Xi Jinping. He's been going after Maduro, where the people were losing weight so much that they called it the Maduro diet, because people were losing like 30 pounds a year because they weren't
damn,
getting enough nutrition. And we see the oppression happen. This last year alone, I think it was allegedly the Iranian government killed 30,000 of their own people because they were protesting. So There's a
Yeah.
justification to want to see these people removed. So while there are people mad, like, oh, the U.S. shouldn't be in war, the U.S. shouldn't be involved in this and that, few people are crying for the Shah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not the Shah. I'm sorry, the Supreme Leader.
I
The
know what you mean.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Supreme Leader. No one's crying for the loss of the Supreme Leader except for the people who he gave power to.
Mm-hmm.
There are few Iranian people in Iran that are actually crying for the loss of the Supreme Leader. There are few people that are outside that are crying for it. There are some people saying that, oh, we shouldn't be involved in the war, but it's like, yeah, but we got rid of a bad leader, right? And they're like, well, that's besides the point. But he was a bad leader, right? Well, yeah. Well, there you go. I'm not saying that it's always a right or two wrongs to make a right or whatever it may be, but again, he's not taking care of somebody in an unjustifiable way. You killed 30,000 young people, and you might get got.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. I'm telling you. We've got a journey before us. And you know what? We are very blessed to have Trump in office
Mhm.
right now because if we didn't have Trump, we would be in a heap of trouble,
Yeah,
you know?
it's funny. Uh, yeah, he's doing great, but like, here's the funny thing: someone said, and I was saying a little too. To think, one person was getting mad about him, like, oh, like he's being like a warmonger. It's like, well, you kind of could have just given him the Nobel Peace Prize, and maybe this wouldn't have happened. He pushed all that peace, all these kind of things. They're like, oh, we're not going to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Oh, I'm not a peacemaker. All right, we're going to take care of the people who will not give peace. There you go. So
Wow.
I'm going to be a peacemaker somehow, either by actually installing peace or by installing peace.
Well, John, I could talk with you for hours. There's so many other things I could bring up that we can go on. But listen, we got to have you back on again. And you know me, I'm one of your fans. Woo! Got my cowboy boots.
There you go.
So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to close it out, and we'll talk soon.
Looking forward to it. I got to make my way down to y'all's area again sometime.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll do
constantly
lunch.
making travels. I got to make it down. If you guys got a Lincoln dinner or something coming up, I'm trying to fill in the map. So let me know. And whether it's in St. Lucie or Indian River, wherever, just let me know and I'll try to be there.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll get that information from Lamar and shoot it out to you.
Looking forward.
All right. Well, you have a good evening.
You do the same. Stay out of trouble if you can.
Always. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us here at the Board Report another Friday at 7 p.m. Listen, I want to remind you guys that we're going to be at Filthy's next Thursday for the Conspiracy 101 Club, hosted by John Caroll. Bring $20 so you could buy your conspiracy shirts. Also, go to ircmedia.net to visit our website and visit our other podcasters that join us. We've got To The Point Podcast, we've got TGI Now, and of course, Binford Chronicles. So hook up with us every Friday at 7 p.m., every second Thursday at Filthy's from 6 to 8 at the Conspiracy Club, and hook up with my Binford Chronicles at 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Have a great evening, and thank you for joining us.